Hi everyone, welcome to the Verkos show. Today's guest is all the way from the UK. All I can say about this incredible guest, she's an author, but what she endured as a child and to where she is today and how she reached to inspire, to find the strength to be out of the situation she is through books. Please welcome on the show, D.G.Torrens. How are you?
Hi, it's so lovely to be here, Anastasia. It's great to see you.
I am so excited because when I found out what you endured as a child and how you reached out to books and how you found the strength and the power to get out of the situation you were in is beyond comprehension. And I take my hat off to you, and I'm glad. And seeing you today and your essence and presence is mind-blowing. It shows us what a true inspiration and empowered and powerful woman you are.
Thank you. I think what I didn't realise when I was a child that I've, since realised is, that you hear it a lot with trauma survivors, survival mode. And I lived my whole childhood through survival mode. And it's a state of mind where you're constantly on alert because, and that became my superpower. That I didn't realize, but that was actually my superpower because of that survival mode. And I was constantly on alert of dangers imminent and around me constantly. It made me so aware that I think it actually got me through and sidestepped past some of dangers that could have really impacted my childhood even worse than it actually was. And also as well, I think, when you're living in children's homes and there's so many other children there with their own stories. They've each got their own horror story. And you're all in a state of survival. You're all struggling to survive every single day. And as you know, we've talked about it. Unfortunately, I was transferred to a children's home because the state care system was overloaded. So I was sent to one of the homes in the Bryn Allen community, run by the notorious John Allen, who ran a private group of children's homes in North Wales, and it was dubbed in the press as the Children's Homes from Hell. And as you know, a lot of children suffered under his care, and the very people that were supposed to be taking care of them and taking care of their life were the very ones putting their lives in danger. And he's paying the price now. He was sent to prison along with quite a few other people. But how I dealt with that as a child, which is hence it's no surprise that I'm an author today. I had a second superpower, and it was so transformative at that time. Each children's home, whether it's a state care one or whether it's in the private children's homes like the Bryn Allen community, they've all got a sparse library, which all the books are donated from local charities and, people who just want to help out, and they donate their old books and stuff. So that became my heaven. Yeah. And the one thing I learned to do was to make myself as invisible as possible, as long as possible. So I would hide, so to speak, in corners of these little libraries, and I would work my way through as many books as possible. That's where I discovered Enid Blyton. The famous five. I absolutely adored those stories. And I had the ability to transport myself to magical worlds. And as a child doing that, mentally, you actually feel like you're in that story. You can take yourself out of your physical reality and mentally transfer to this virtual reality within these pages of these old books. So for me, that was magical. And like I said, so transformative. And it set me on the path, although again, I didn't realize then, but it set me on the path to where I am today, because my love of reading grew and grew and grew. And it was it would always be one of my superpowers, and enabled me to survive mentally each day because I had that escape. And hence, once I'd left the state care system and I became an adult, and my destiny was finally in my own hands, and I was able to make my own choices and decide what I wanted to do with each day of my life and each week and each year. And I could decide if I wanted to do this and do that. It was absolutely fascinating to me at the time.
It was like your freedom that you never had. But with the other children there, how did you all get along? Did they have similar, like let out or something to escape that feeling that they were in and that cagement?
Yeah, it is engagement. You're right, actually. It's a perfect description. Engagement is exactly it, because you do feel like you're cut off from the rest of the world. You can't go out of the grounds. These are huge, great monstrosities of children's homes, old stately homes converted into children's homes. So the dorms were large, and you'd share dormitory with many other children. And that was quite traumatic because you had children who would cry in during the night, screaming because of nightmares, disappearing. Some would be taken out during the night, and you'd be like, well, where are they taking the children? And many years later we discovered why that was happening. So I think every child had their own traumatic story, and they each dealt with it in their own way. Like for me, I escaped into books. Other children, they just became very they isolated themselves, and a lot of them would disassociate themselves from their surroundings. I mean, to some degree I did that myself by disappearing into books. It's the only way you can survive. And some children would be violent because they were so angry at the world. Yeah, of course. And they didn't understand what was happening to them. So I think they each found their own way. Some, like me, found solace in books. Others in some form of art, lose themselves in their drawing and became great artists. And, so I think children are very resilient, they're so strong. And even though at the time you think of what children have suffered, in different situations around the world, what they suffer and what they grow up to become. It's amazing. It's quite miraculous, really. And when I look back to my, let's say, 12, 13-year-old self, I just think, wow, you were so strong. And I want to give her a big hug, because at the time I didn't feel strong and I didn't feel brave, and I was scared all the time. And but when I look back at her now as an adult, like a separate human being, I don't know how on earth I did it. I don't know how I kind of survived it, really, if I'm truly honest. Um, and I'm not sure I could now if I was in that situation now. But yes, I think it set me on the path to becoming an author, and it was all I ever wanted to be. And even once I'd left the care system and acclimatized to being a normal member of society. It sounds odd saying that, like I was a released prisoner or something, but it felt that way, really.
You would have, but you even tried to escape how many times?
101 times I ran away.
My goodness. What was the punishment?
The punishment was harsh. It was a very notorious children's home, and it was dubbed the Children's Home from Hell for many good reasons, and the punishments were one of them. I ran away so many times because I didn't feel safe. It was not a nice place. It was a cruel place to live, and I couldn't bear it. So I just kept running away and running away. And every time I got picked up, or, I'd try and tell the police, look, something's wrong here, something's not right, and I'm scared. And back in those days, there was a famous saying, and it was, children should be seen and not heard, and stop telling tales. And I'd love to come face to face with those people now, after all the the press coverage and what's happened, and how everything came to a head many years later. Because although at the time, you know, when they say, oh, stop telling tales and you don't know what you're talking about, and you start questioning your own sanity, and I'm thinking, well, am I over exaggerating? Have I got this wrong? I mean, am I feeling like this for no good reason? And I think deep down I knew that what I was feeling was right, and something wasn't right. And you're always worried that one day, is it going to be my turn next? You know, are they going to come for me next? And am I going to be taken out of my bedroom in the middle of the night one night? You're living with that constant fear. And it's a horrible way to feel. So you constantly find ways to protect yourself, but without realizing you're doing it. You kind of do it almost auto on pilot. So I would put on like as much clothing as I could every night when I went to bed. Yeah. So I put pajamas on, and I'd have a pair of jeans on and a couple of tops and jumpers, you know. So I just instinctively knew somehow that would help things for me. That would make things better or slow something down. But I wasn't 100% sure what or why. And then maybe it was a couple of years later, you know, there was a couple of attempts, and there was an angel who saved me. An alarm bell went off, so I didn't get taken, and I escaped on, you know, that the awful things that happened to a lot of children in there. I escaped that. On the 3 occasions that it nearly happened, like I said, an alarm bell went off, or there was a night watchman had been alerted because of somebody out of their room, and all the, you know, chaos would break loose, and an alarm would go off again, and something always happened, and I was spared. So, but it was always living with that fear. It could happen again. It could happen again. I had a couple of near misses, and I'm thankful it never happened to me, but it happened to a lot of children in there, and mainly boys. It happened to a couple of girls, 1 or 2 girls as well, but it was mainly boys. So one of my saving graces is the fact that I was female as well. Yeah, because the boys were targeted, and the younger they were, the more they were wanted, and the more they would be taken out of the institution or the children's home at weekends, and they would be taken to some posh house in the hills somewhere, and sold off to clients for sex for the weekend, and then returned back to the children's home. And they were never the same. I remember when they used to come back, we used to think they were going, we were told, oh, they're going to the boss's house for the weekend. They've been chosen to go to the boss, and they're going to watch movies and have all this fun. So
yeah,
we didn't know. We believed it for a long time, but eventually we knew something was wrong, because when they came back with gifts that we could only dream of having, and they'd be given their own bedroom. So they were being isolated away from other children as well, but they were different. They stopped talking. They were quiet. It was almost as if the life had disappeared from their eyes, and we then started to realize something's not right, something's going on, what's going on? And but we just never knew exactly what it was. We just didn't. But there was rumors, and there was rumors against the children. Oh, this is happening, and that's happening, and this is happening, ranging from one scale to the other. You can only imagine. So it was something every one of us children had to navigate, that possibility of, something happening to them. But we didn't know if it was violence, or they were being moved to another home because something else had happened, or, oh, they haven't moved, they've come back they've only went for the weekend. And then sometimes children would leave, and you'd never see them again, and they disappear, or suddenly a child has committed suicide, and you just think, you don't know why. But it was quite common in children's homes, so it wasn't unusual if a child committed suicide. It's just, now I realize why so many did, and now, having known the reason, having been made aware of the reason, having left all these years later and knowing what happened and being in, when they were investigating all this big, huge paedophile ring that was ran through these Ben Allen children's homes, all of us children, I was in my 20s, many years later after I'd left, and I remember them turning up at work. I don't know how they found me. Two detectives wanted to interview me regarding John Allen and Bryn Allen and the members of staff that ran it, and went over old statements that maybe I'd made, but when I thought something wasn't right, and then they'd want to rediscuss that with me. And I'm sure they went round to many other children as well who had also maybe made complaints, ran away because they didn't feel safe. But like I said, it wasn't just about that. I mean, the boys had that issue, but everybody had the issue of severe punishments for the slightest little thing. And they were severe, you would be separated from everybody else. You'd have to eat separately. You'd be put on scrubs in the depths of winter. In Wales, in the UK, you have snow back then, all them decades ago. The snow in the winters used to come right up to your knees, past your knees. People would be snowed in. It would be so severe. And if you'd done something to upset one of the members of staff, it could be something little. It could be, I don't know, you looked at somebody the wrong way, you ran away, anything. You would be put in a pair of shorts and a T-shirt and a pair of open plimsolls with no laces, and they'd be a couple of sizes too big. And every day you'd be made to go outside into the courtyard and shovel all the snow when it was like -2 or 3 or whatever, or maybe 1, 2. But it was very, very cold. I mean, it was snowing and we were shoveling up all the ice and stuff. I can't remember exactly. It was a long time ago. But yeah, we'd be shoveling snow for hours. And I remember I got so ill once by the end of the week. I was ill for weeks with like severe flu, obviously. But they had their own doctor. Social services weren't alerted to a lot of things like this because it was privately run. So he kind of had, he had a free reign, really. And he had his own doctor. They had their own, doctor that. So the doctor was also in cahoots with John Allen. So a lot of things were hidden. A lot of records were hidden.
My goodness.
So, yeah. That was the journey, the start of my journey. I wrote it all in this book here. A story. It's a 3-book trilogy. It's my bestseller still to this day. And my whole journey is in that book. And it's not just about my childhood. It's how I navigated the real world as a teenager, as a young adult, as a mother as well. And how I kind of dealt with my own sort of trauma, because there are things that remain with you. I mean, if I'm honest, Anastasia, even to this day, as happy as I am, and I'm in such an amazing place. I'm an orphan. I've got a lovely husband and daughter who's nearly 14, and she's the light of my life. I mean, she's everything to me. But even now, something might trigger me and I will feel quite down for a couple of days. It will have an effect on me. Not very often. It's very rare these days, but something can trigger me. I might see something on the news, or because every once in a while, those stories come back into the press for one reason or another. A documentary might be being made about them, and it'll come on. I'm like, oh my, and I'm looking and I might see some old faces, and it kind of sends you into a bit of a retreat. I might disassociate myself for a couple of days.
It's understandable. That's like me with my past. If I hear anything or feel anything that I have gone through, it just brings back memories, and you think, oh my gosh, and that's why I believe we're here to tell our stories. So people, I believe by sharing the truth with people's traumas and everything, I think it helps others to sort of, whether it will be snap out of it or plant a seed for them to see the light, or then So be it. That's how I see it. Like, I know that
Yeah.
when I heard your story, I was like, I can resonate with a lot of stuff, but not in a home like you did in care, but a lot of situations where you live in fear, you're a child, like even growing up as an adult, you know, fearing other things as well. Like, it's just like, I can't explain. So I can relate to why you would have these triggers.
Yeah.
It's enjoyed, like from a child, there's a lot to intake. And also you've got
Well,
siblings too. Did they get put into that care, or did they get adopted out, your siblings?
oh, my siblings, no, my siblings, I didn't reconnect with my brother until God, a few years ago. Literally, I think it was within the last 10 years. And then I think once when I was younger, and then we lost contact again, and then we reconnected properly about 10 years ago. But my other two sisters, they were very, very young. We were all put into one of the first children's homes, just called Bestford House. That wasn't too bad, actually. That was probably out of all of them, probably the best one. They tried their best, and it was all right. But we were put in there together, so that was great, because I used to act like their mother, take care of them, and so I was very overprotective. I was like a little mini adult myself. However, the sad part of that is because they were so young, I don't know, 3 and 6 or 3 and 5, something like that, they were easy to adopt out, to foster out. So we all got separated within a few months of being in Bestford House. Janie and Gail, they were my sisters. They got sent to foster parents together. Never saw them again, and we wasn't allowed contact, because back then they believed that complete separation was better for all, otherwise we'd all be disrupted mentally. So I mean, I didn't understand that. I broke down. It completely set me back, because they were taking away all I had left. You know, I couldn't lose much more, and they were all I had. And then my brother and we all got separated, and we never saw I've never seen them since. So I know what I know, that I know a little bit about what's happening with one of them, but the other one, I think she's deliberately chosen to, because she doesn't remember us. She was so a baby. She'd had a whole new life, you know, and got given a decent life, and I don't blame her for not wanting to know about, you know, our mother, and it was, you know, sort of the catalyst for our terrible childhood. And I think she's chosen to remain anonymous and live her life apart from, which I totally 100% understand. But I've left details with various governing bodies should she want to seek me out. Or look for her family at any point in her life. I will be easy to find, you know, it won't be difficult. So no, the youngest one, nobody's ever heard from her. She just went on to live her own life, and you know, and like I said, because she didn't remember anything, she just got, by the time she was 2 or 3, she was in foster parents, a nice set of foster, so a nice set of foster parents, and she got a chance to live a normal life. And you know, I'm really grateful for that, because I couldn't have bared the thought of her being in any of the places I went to with her being so young, because I'm not sure that her and those my 2 younger sisters would have survived it. They were too young. And my one sister, not the youngest, but the second youngest, she was disabled. You know, she was also disabled. She had not mentally, but physically, she had one leg. She was born with one leg shorter than the other. So when we went into a children's home, she had a large metal splint up the back of her leg to try and, you know, it was just to try and, after she'd had operations, they tried to strengthen, and, you know, all the operations that she had to have done was incredible. So she constantly had this, like, it almost looked like a cage on her leg, but it was holding in place a steel splint at the back of her leg. So she was very vulnerable, and I was very super protective over her. And they both had beautiful, long, gorgeous hair, and they were so beautiful. But the day that my siblings were taken...
Yeah, but from your point of view, to have that was all that you had of family left, and you were like and protecting them and caring them, and then separating. I can just imagine the burdens on you and what you went through as a child. Oh my gosh, that's horrific.
I think at that point, I've wrote about that in my book. I completely broke down. I had a bit of a nervous breakdown, I think, because I mean, it wasn't labeled as a breakdown, but I think looking back now, and I had a breakdown. It was my response to, because everything that I owned and not owned, everything that I had in the world had now gone. I didn't have a home, and I was in a children's home. I didn't have my siblings. You didn't even have possessions, just what you were taken into care with. So, which usually consisted of a small bag of things. So everything had gone, and for a brief time, that was probably one of the lowest points in my entire life ever. I didn't feel like I had anything to live for, because what was the point? That's how I felt as my young self, as a child. But eventually, I worked through it. You go through you process it daily, and each day it's easier to get up. It's almost like mourning the death. I knew I'd never see them again, and I didn't for over 20 years or so, my brother. So you're going through this processing of a bereavement of sorts, and that's exactly how it felt. It felt like my heart had been ripped from my chest, literally. Anyway, eventually, I knew I had to work. I knew I had to literally go through to the age of 16. And there was nothing more I could do about that. And I just had to get through each day, each year. And I did. And you survive these things. Like I said, children are resilient. I found my superpowers. I knew that I was never going to... The one thing I always knew, it's a weird thing this is, Anastasia, but I was a child, but in my head, I was never a child. I don't ever remember being... like when once I was in the children's homes, I just remember always thinking a bit like a young adult, because you're surviving. And I always remember thinking, when my destiny is in my hands, I am going to prove to the world I will not be a victim of my circumstances. Never. I am not going to allow my past to determine and drive my future, because I didn't want to go decades and decades, sort of it being driven. Yeah. So once I left and got used to, acclimatized to being back into a normal world, and just being a young girl again, just being a teenager and navigating sort of the things that normal girls my age at that time was working through, was quite, it was very interesting to me, because I saw it from a different point of view. And I started writing, I was working, but I always wrote stories. And I had by the time I was like 30, I had so many half-written novels all over the place. And it's bizarre, really, to think, here I am, all these years later, 23 published novels, and probably about 3 or 4 on top of that, and participation, short stories in anthologies as well, which would make about 27 publications. I still feel like, gosh, is this really happening? And some days it's like so too good to be true. I feel like, is this all going to be taken away from me? Is this real? Am I going to wake up? Is this all about a good, is it a dream? And I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be sort of back.
I feel like with my situation, like you're meant to go what you're meant to go through to be who you are today, to bring you to the person you are today, to share that gift. If it was a gift, like when you say superpowers, as a child, that's all you knew. That's what you turned to. And that's amazing. Like, I want people to read the book. That's why I don't want to go too much into detail with your mum and everything and how it all happened. Let them read the book.
You have to read the book for the rest.
Legit. And also, how are you with your daughter? Like, knowing that, because I can just imagine how protective you would be of her. But how?
So,
Yeah, I could just imagine. I could just imagine.
my daughter, the one thing I knew the minute I laid eyes on her in the hospital and held her in my arms for the first time, oh my gosh, my whole life changed. I was holding this tiny little thing, and I just knew there and then that I was going to give her the life I could only have ever dreamed of as a child. And she's happy and she's in grammar school and she's so bright and she's doing so well. And she's got all the same friends she went through primary school with, and she's in, now she's 13, 14, and she's had so much awesome stability that I never had. And she's just got so many good childhood memories, and she is happy, and she's got all the normal things, just a great group of friends and a school that she loves. And I taught literally a whole street how to play British Bulldog. It's a game, and all the kids on the street every summer, they're like, Auntie Dawn, can we play British Bulldog? And we'd have everybody out on the street playing British Bulldog, So I created memories like that and played all those sorts of games with her. I wished I'd had parents to do that with me, taking her to school and dropping her off at the gates and being there to pick her up. Simple things were the things that have made me the happiest. And watching her grow into this young woman, she's a young teenager. And I just look at her and I just think, wow, I made that.
Yeah.
I made that. Do you ever think that? I made that.
You know what it is? It's you appreciate so much, even like that child. And I believe that some of her, how you've brought her up, like the teaching you how to play and the games, it's bringing out what you've lost, what you've missed.
Yeah.
And by being there, that's beautiful though. And happen to be a girl too, that's amazing.
I know. Thank God I had a girl. I was very, very lucky because having children, something else I discovered, it wasn't easy for me. I had to go for IVF because I couldn't carry. Not carry. It's, the journey. I had to have IVF so I can carry a child, but I couldn't conceive. That's the word I'm looking for before I embarrass myself with some terrible description. Yeah, but no, I couldn't conceive, but I can carry. So we went to IVF. We caught first time, so that was so lucky. And we had my daughter Lilia, and she's just so bright. She's the light of my life. She really is. My husband knows that there's a 3-tier. My daughter comes first, then my books, then him. And he's okay with that, So he comes third. But my daughter, she's definitely, I feel like she kind of made me. Everything changed when I had her because it became so important for me to leave a good legacy for her. I wanted to write my story for her in a way that it would answer all the questions I know she'll be asking, when she's a bit older. And I just wanted to leave a legacy for her. And I wanted my daughter to be proud of me. I wanted her to think, she wasn't a victim of her past. Look, she's turned it all around and she became somebody all by herself. And, so I wanted to be that mother for her to, look up to and be proud. Yeah. Especially because my view of my mother, and it wasn't for any, it was, for the way we were treated so badly and so poorly. And, we've talked about this, so I won't say much more because people have to read the book. And, but
how did Amelia, the name Amelia, you called it Amelia's story?
Amelia, because it was the only way at the time I could write the book. I had to I love the name Amelia for a start. Absolutely love the name. If I'd have had a choice, I would love to have been called Amelia. So this was my chance to be Amelia, not Dawn. But also, it was a way of me to step out of myself and write the book as a writer, as an author. Because obviously the book triggered me so much, and I had to go back and revisit some of these children's homes, and I had to go and contact social services. I had to get permissions to get access for my care records so that I could include details of them in the book. So you imagine some of the things I stumbled across was just mind-blowing and so unexpected. So yes, I had to kind of disassociate slightly and step back and almost write it as if someone else was writing it. It was me, but it wasn't, in order to be able to get through it and complete it.
That was your way to cope with what you were writing and telling your story.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, man. Seriously, I thought I'm going to ask a question. So, if you had a message to deliver to the world today, and all the viewers out there today, what would that message be?
My message would be, never listen to negative people. There will always be somebody who will want to weaponize your weaknesses. If your weakness is a trauma, mental health, I know most people have some sort of mental health issue, whether it's depression, whether it's love, loss. It will all lead one way or another at some point to, mental health issues. It's trauma, it's triggering, whatever situation you've been through. But my advice, 100%, is never allow anybody to weaponize your weaknesses. Those weaknesses are your superpowers. They really are. And there will always be somebody who wants to see you fall. And if you look hard enough, you'll see, and often enough, those people can be closer to you than you think, So it's just stand tall. Don't allow people to encourage you to fall. Just stand taller and keep going, because, believe in yourself. You can do anything. Think it and it will happen. What you think can happen. And I believe in that. I believe in the law of attraction, and I believe in manifestation. I'm obsessed with it now. And if you think you can, you will. And if you think you can't, you won't. Is the best advice I can give.
Oh, thank you so much. That was beautiful. Also, we'll just mention about your new book quickly.
Okay, One for Sorrow. It's a psychological thriller. It's going to be due out about springtime. It's a really good psychological thriller. It touches on violence and sexual abuse within marriage. It's totally fictional, but yes, it touches on those things. And think Sleeping with the Enemy with Julia Roberts, that movie. It's that kind of story, but obviously not the same. But the last book I published was Amnesia, and again, that kind of touches on sort of narcissistic relationships within within sort of partnerships, and she survives near death, but she doesn't know who's done it, and she gets attacked, and the truth is closer to home, but she doesn't realise it till towards the end. That's called Amnesia.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm so excited. Where can I purchase your books? Where can I purchase your books?
Well, audible.com. For Amelia's story, you can purchase them on amazon.com or Amazon all over the world, Barnes and Noble, audible.com. For all the other books, you can purchase them on any Amazon site worldwide. So, yeah.
Excellent. All right then, Dawn, thank you so much for your time today. I'm wishing you all the best and all the success and the victory, because you deserve it. Seriously. You're such a beautiful soul. Thank you so much. Signing
You've
off.
been an absolute blessing. You've been adorable. Thank you so much. It's been lovely talking to you. Take care. Bye.
Signing off for now from the Talk Show Angel on the Verkos Show. Bye.